Welcome into the Colts Squad Show. I'm your host, Derek Schultz. And a football championship in Indiana? Is that allowed?
And I'm Zach Hicks. And although I couldn't fully appreciate the championship, I was rooting alongside all of you guys on Monday night.
This is Jake and Ben Arthur. And, two of the last four national championship competitors are from the state of Indiana. At least one of them won.
Hi, I'm Alan Pinkett, former Oiler, and I can celebrate Indiana winning the national championship because the center played at Notre Dame last year.
Colts Nation, rise up. It's the Colts Squad. Everything Indianapolis Colts every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Circle City, the way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. It's time to squad up. The Colts Squad Show starts now.
Welcome to the Colts Squad Show. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Derek Schultz, longtime Indy sports talker and columnist for the Indianapolis Business Journal. I'm joined by a Notre Dame legend and longtime NFL running back Alan Pinkett, and our Locked On Colts duo of Jake Arthur and Zach Hicks are here too. I guess I should say trio because Ben's here too, as we're fully squatted up for tonight's show with rolling 5 deep for the Colts Squad Show. Our series of position group reviews continues on tonight's episode with the defensive secondary, which I think at the safety position certainly was a bright spot. We all know what happened at cornerback with the injuries, so we will go through the good, the bad, and the ugly from the 2025 season with that position group of the Colts. And then we'll transition into the expectations for Sauce Gardner and some of the uncertainty about Mooney Ward's future and Nick Cross being a free agent and some of what that room is going to look like in 2026. But really focus on Sauce because I think, and maybe we kind of all fell into this trap, once Sauce was banged up and once Daniel Jones went down, we all kind of declared the trade a failure. Sauce Gardner still in the prime of his career, right? And still can be a productive star-level player in the league. And so we're going to talk about some of maybe the optimistic viewpoint on Sauce Gardner, who the book has not been written for quite yet, coming up here in segment 2. In segment 3, we'll lean into Indiana's championship. Which Indiana Hoosier would you most like to see become a Colt? And I have good news for you guys. We're going to take all of the context out of it. So if you want to say Mendoza, just say Mendoza. Who cares? Let's just go ahead and roll with it. Let's have some fun with it. We'll do that in segment 3. And then in segment 4, we'll get into our news and notes, including a new head coach entering the AFC South. That news just breaking earlier this week. But guys, let's start with this secondary as we continue our position review. And like I said, Zach, good, bad, and ugly, man, there were kind of all three of those things. I feel like we hit all of the ranges of emotions with the secondary in 2025.
Yeah, I think overall you say more ugly or more bad on the season, but I think more that had to do with injuries than it had to do with actual play on the field, because when Mooney Ward was on the field, I thought we saw some really good things from him. When Sauce Gardner was on the field, we saw some pretty good things from him. And then obviously the injury that we all forget about was Justin Wally in training camp, where he looked like an impact rookie for this team, gets banged up in training camp, and we don't see him his entire rookie year. We can even throw Hunter Wohler in there if you want to count him as a secondary piece. I know he was going to play some linebacker as well. So injuries really just derailed what could have been a really good season for this Colts secondary. They finally had the dogs to be a talented secondary, but the dogs couldn't stay healthy back there. I think we saw some good things though, at safety. Cameron Bynum had a very good season, probably had the best season of his career. I still think there's another step that he can take. Nick Cross in the first half of the season, I thought was a great fit in this defense. Did trail off a little bit in the second half, but first half of the season, he was like a jackknife for this defense that did a lot of cool things. And even some of the replacement guys that got put in there, they were always in the right position. I thought the communication was really good. It's just, you need experience on the field to know when to track the ball, when to turn your head, when to get your hand on the football, when to, play through the hands. And I think we saw a lot of that inexperience really show up. But I think their communication, I think the way that they got ready for the games was right. It's just talent does mean something in the NFL. And sometimes, a guy's a practice squad player for a reason. A guy's an undrafted free agent for a reason. And we saw that on Sundays at times for the Colts. So I think they did the best that they could with a poor situation. There were times when Lou Anarumo probably could have been a little bit more lenient on them and not played as much man coverage with undrafted free agents out there at corner and played a little bit more of the dreaded bend don't break with those guys. But it was kind of death by fire with a lot of these guys, and they kind of got they got their feet wet in a big way. I will say one big negative, though, was the Xavier Howard experiment at the beginning of the season. I didn't expect it to go well, but it went worse than what we would have expected he retired after 2 or 3 games because it was that bad. Overall, the secondary was a weak spot for the Colts, but I think more so had to do with the injuries than it had to do with the way that players played or underperformed. I wouldn't really say many guys underperformed in the secondary. It's just the guys that they were down to and out there for the entirety of the season performed the way we expected, which is not good because they're practice squad guys and undrafted free agents out there.
Yeah, so you basically just mentioned Jonathan Edwards 9 different ways.
I love Jonathan Edwards too. I just feel like I'm calling him out so much because I think there's something there. It's just find the football, please.
No, he was in the right spot a lot. I do want to quiz you guys real quick though. Which Colts cornerback played the most snaps on the team last year?
Well, besides Kenny, because Kenny probably played the most, right?
Nope.
Mekhi Blackman then.
Yes,
Mekhi Blackman.
Got a 6th-rounder traded for him in the preseason. There were also, guess how many corners played at least 100 snaps?
I know they were at 9 at one point. Did it get to 10?
It was at 9. Mike Hilton, who was only derailed by a shoulder injury, 70 snaps. So they had everything. That was just corners that I was talking about. So no, it's hard to find stability in the secondary when no one is around for any longer than a few weeks at a time, it seems like. But if we're just going off of how guys played when they were healthy, I thought it was pretty good. Both Sauce and Mooney Ward were there. It was the Colts' top 2 graded defensive backs while they were actually on the field. Both of them allowed passer ratings under 90 and completion percentages under 60. So the big swings the Colts took at corner worked while they were out there, but the injuries obviously, that had different plans about the whole thing. And then, Cam Bynum was a really big one too. Career high 4 interceptions. Sorry, Ben is he's really passionate about this as well. But everyone was out. Kenny Moore even missed 3 games. Justin Wally, Hunter Wooler were out. So yeah, all hands on deck, and they did about as well as possible given the circumstances.
Yeah, and when you look at, I think, what was supposed to be what this room was going to look like, I think a lot of people were excited about it in training camp. I mean, I remember having a conversation with Juju Brents. You guys remember Juju Brents? It wasn't even part of the team in 2025, right? He's talking about, hey, we got dogs in there and they're competing like hell in Westfield. And I know some of that is just camp talk. That's what they say at camp. But I think you saw some of that this could be a really good room. And then it was just kind of one of those situations, to your point, Zach, that never really got, the whole thing never really got off the ground because, think about if on paper you put Mooney Ward next to Sauce Gardner, next to Cam Bynum, next to Nick Cross, you're feeling really good about that group. But what do we end up getting with those 4? I mean, did we even get a game and a half out of those 4 all together on the field at the same time? I don't even know. I don't think so. If it was that, it wasn't much more than that. And that's just a tiny fraction of the season. I know that that's partly because of the Sauce trade and all that, but Ellen, as a former player, best laid plans, right? Sometimes what you have on paper is not what you put out there on the field. And I think we would all agree that whether it's fair or not, the Colts did not adjust well to their injury situation in that defensive backfield.
Well, I mean, and forgive me because you see the background is a little different for me this time. I'm in a hotel room and, I always love to say, technology is a wonderful thing when it works, because right now I can't hear a damn thing Jake is saying. So I was just trying to wait for his lips to stop moving, and I was going to jump in, but you guys might just have to signal to me. Okay. It's your turn. But you can have great prospects going into year based on what's on paper. And this group did look like it was good on paper. But I think what it shows is that the level of receivers in the league nowadays are so good that you have to somehow try to match that talent with what you have in the secondary. And Zach, you said it good. The guys played hard back there, but they're undrafted free agents for a reason. A Sauce Gardner is going to make that play where he gets a tip on the ball, where Jonathan Edwards is going to be maybe a half a step behind. And unfortunately, in contemporary professional football, where you have a salary cap, you're going to have, one guy that's getting a boatload of money, and then you're searching for the next minimum wage player you can find. It just makes it hard to have depth at any position. So it's unfortunate, but the injury bug, it hurts every team, but it just seemed like it hurt the Colts even more because the talent deficit was very clear in the defensive backfield when you look at the receivers that they had to play against. And, I think it was a valiant effort, especially I think the last good defensive performance was against Seattle on the road. Looking at what Seattle did to San Francisco in the playoffs, and knowing that we got them to overtime, and that's where the talent deficit really appeared. But for the most part, you held them in check for that game. But I think it's a good group, and I would love to just see a healthy Sauce. And I didn't have many expectations for Sauce coming in the middle of the year. Having to learn a new defense, having to learn how to communicate with guys that he didn't even know their names. Thank God they had the names on the back of their jersey, so he could communicate. But I think next year will be different. I hope that Mooney is back at full speed, because that's a hell of a tandem to have back there. The safeties played good. Nick Cross was my defensive MVP. So hopefully, and there's going to be maybe some contract woes because of the salary cap that we may not get a Cam Bynum. But I think the guys played, they were commendable how they played, but you need talent in this league. And unfortunately, the guys are talented. I'm not trying to say they were garbage back there, because those guys, if they're playing in the NFL, they're good, but the disparity between some of the receivers that the Colts had to face and what the Colts had in the defensive backfield, it was a no-win proposition.
Yeah, and two aspects I really want to address here going into the offseason. One is the fact that if you're going to have a system like this, right, where the Colts on third down are playing man coverage at a 50 to 60% rate. Like, they're playing a lot of man coverage. They're bringing 5-6 man pressures on these third downs. And just overall, they're running like a 30% man coverage rate. You have to have dogs in that cornerback room from top to bottom. There has to be a clear and concise investment top to bottom in that cornerback room if this is the system you're going to play. So this is on the general manager and the defensive coordinator to get on the same page about what type of corners they need in here, what guys they can go get feasibly in the draft or feasibly in the offseason to make sure that this situation doesn't happen again. You're not going to fully prevent 9 corners playing this amount of snaps, that's just nature of injuries and stuff. But, we've seen teams survive corner injuries in this league, and the Colts could have survived it better if they had addressed that better in the offseason coming in, or maybe, again, just getting more draft guys in here that are capable of playing. The second part of this, too, is whether you're playing man, whether you're playing zone, whatever it's going to be, it's really hard to play corner in this league when you have constant two-way goes because you don't trust the inside help. So at linebacker, at whoever the strong safety is, isn't just a Nick Cross thing. It could be Rodney Thomas or whoever is playing that robber position over the middle of the field. Those players this year, all those players that were in those middle of the field zones or just middle of the field in general, were not playmakers this season. The Colts didn't get linebacker interceptions over the middle of the field. They didn't get linebacker pass breakups over the middle of the field. So you're constantly, as a corner, having to play in this situation of two-way go where every single release, it's like I have to be on my guy if he breaks inside, on my guy if he breaks outside, where if you have better linebacker play in the middle of the field, you can be, hey, I can play outside leverage when this guy breaks inside because I have that help to the middle. But because you don't have consistent help in there, you're playing this catch-up game all the time. So improving the linebacker room, improving just the coverage in the middle of the field can help these corners to where even if you have injuries, they can perform their job a little bit better. So I think those are the two aspects the Colts really need to address this offseason is just upgrade that linebacker room and then get on the same page with Lou Anarumo about what he wants at corner, because really what put them behind the 8 ball was Lou in training camp being like, I don't care for Jalen Jones, I don't care for Juju Brents, and I don't care for Samuel Womack. Well, we're cutting 3 corners we expected to roster, so now we have to have all these undrafted free agent guys filling out and trading a panic trade for Mekhi Blackman and bring in Xavier Howard. So they have to get on the same page and they have to upgrade the linebacker room to make life easier for this cornerback room.
Yeah, it's kind of like they repeated the same mistakes of 22 and 23 with Dallas Flowers and guys like that as well. Guys that clearly just weren't ready to play or, dealing with injuries and all of that because they were settling in a way. And I understand that the circumstances dictated some of that. But sticking in the cornerback room, maybe he never lives up to the insane bar of 2 first-round picks, but can Sauce Gardner still be a difference maker for the Colts in 2026? We'll discuss next when the Colts Squad Show returns. This portion of the Colts Squad Show brought to you by Indeed. If you've ever tried to hire somebody who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. Need to hire somebody at your company? Go straight to Indeed and be very specific about what you need. Real experience, not just a resume buzzword. Don't struggle to find candidates or get your posting seen. Use Indeed to expedite the process for you and make it faster, less stressful, painless. Spend less time interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes with less stress, less time, more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. That's Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. This portion of the show also brought to you by Robinhood. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house. It's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's when people moving the action. So when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but I never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer a spectator. Play-by-play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood. Now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives, LLC, a registered futures commission, merchant, and swap firm. And we're back on the Locked On Colts Squad Show. Thanks so much for joining us alongside the Locked On Colts duo of Jake Arthur and Zach Hicks and former NFLer Alan Pinkett. I'm Derek Schultz. So, guys, let's talk about Sauce because, Sauce kind of got swept up in the collapse of last season, right? And you feel bad for the guy. I mean, it almost started out like it was not meant to be last season for him, right? Because the trade happens, the Colts are in Germany, and then he's got to meet up the team there. And then, they have the great win, right? He nearly has an interception. He probably should have had an interception in that game. We all know what happens. Jonathan Taylor, the walk-off run in OT. Everybody's feeling themselves, right? 8-2. Let the good times roll. Sauce is aboard. Let's go. Contending. And they didn't win another game, right? 7 straight losses to end the season. Sauce was only available for a small fraction of those as he dealt with a myriad of injuries as well. But, here's a guy, Zach, that is still in his mid-20s. He's been around the league. We've known about Sauce Gardner for a long time, so I think you think of him as more of a veteran player than he actually is. Let's just take kind of and I know it's hard to do this, but let's try to just take the trade context out of it. Let's just treat Sauce Gardner and laser focus in on an individual. Do you still see a ceiling for him where he can be an all-pro caliber player and really, most importantly, just a difference maker? Because we know the Colts need difference makers all over the field on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I don't know about like all pro or Pro Bowl or any of that stuff because so much of that is a popularity contest
Sure.
based off of, if your team is winning games or not. Like, that's how you're going to get on there, unless you're Quentin Nelson, because nobody watches O-line. So Quentin Nelson, I mean, they're getting it right at least when they're putting him on there, but I digress with that. But in terms of can he play at a high level for the position still, yeah, he's an excellent fit in this system. I think he's got some of the best zone eyes in football. So when they do go to their zone coverage, he can essentially take away one side of the field with his length, his explosion, and his ability to just, again, read the high lows and read route distributions to his side of the field. And then in man coverage, he's really disruptive at the press point. He can get his arms in those throwing windows. And even if he does struggle to turn and run with some receivers on vertical balls, quarterbacks are hesitant to test him down the field because of that length, because of that size. And that's what made him so good with the Jets. I don't know if he's ever going to get the counting stats because he just doesn't have many interceptions in his career in general. He's never really been that kind of guy to be like, oh, he had an 8 interception season. The Colts really won that trade. But in terms of being a guy who limits pass completions to his side, a guy who on third downs, you can match him up with a number 1 wide receiver and allow him to take that guy away while you roll coverage the other way. He can absolutely be that guy. So even factoring back in the trade package, I evaluated all of Chris Ballard's trades actually on my other YouTube channel. And when I did the Sauce Gardner one, I put it as a bad value for now. But the thing with that is there's still so much potential for that to grow, or technically it can go low as well, but it can certainly grow here because, like you said, Derek, this is a 25-year-old corner who has been an all-pro in this league, who can play press, you can play zone coverage, and the Colts have him at a fairly modest deal going forward. Like, even if this thing all blows up this next season, they're not a great team, and they end up firing everybody, he's still a solid piece going forward for the next regime. He's one of the building blocks that they actually have under contract long-term at 25 years old. So yeah, he's a guy that you certainly want to have around and should be a 1A player for your team next year, or one of the better players on your defense next season. So yeah, I mean, they got a good player out of it. And like, it's not like they traded for a bum. It's just he's got to stay healthy is the big thing for next season.
Yeah, Derek, to your point, it was a really tough situation for him coming in the first place. On 3 days' notice, you're learning your new team, and then you have to go off to Europe. And then, that's an overtime game, and you play the entire game. And then they did get the bye week after, but then, okay, now you're back on the road against the Chiefs. Here's another overtime game. Here's another extra game and a quarter, game and a half. So he plays an enormous amount of snaps on a short notice after he'd already been overseas in a game with the Jets this season. And then, of course, the calf injury pops up, which luckily wasn't the Achilles, but it essentially hampered the entire rest of the season because after he came back, he re-aggravated it, and it seemed doomed from the start. So we got a very limited sample size of him. But when he was out there, they did throw at him occasionally. And like any corner, there's going to be some plays you probably want back. But overall, I thought he played very well. As a boundary corner, I thought he did a good job leveraging receivers against the actual boundary and keeping them out of bounds, making it really difficult to get completions on the sideline. He's got very active hands, very, very much tries to harass the ball at all times. If the ball's around, he's not going to be passive whatsoever. He's going to go try and disrupt it or go get it. And yeah, overall, it just sucks because I feel like, what did we get? Like 8-10 good quarters of seeing him out there uninjured. But I have hope that this is going to be a high-end trade for them. I still don't care about the trade compensation just because I feel like it wouldn't be cool of me to go back and say, oh yeah, this is a total waste of a trade, because at the time they thought they were getting a piece to send them to the Super Bowl. And it's like, if you win a Super Bowl, who cares if you don't have 2 first-round picks? You would trade that any day of the week to get a Super Bowl. So no one can plan on the injuries and all that happening. But as long as he stays healthy and plays well, I mean, that's all he needs to do. Like, whatever they gave up is not up to him whatsoever. You know what I mean? So I still have faith in him as a player, as long as he stays healthy. But he's got a whole offseason now to get right and like be with this team and acclimate to being an Indianapolis Colt, and he doesn't have all this change and everything. The good thing about that is like Sauce Gardner is a football nerd. Like he is a student of the game, like total football head. So you don't have to worry about what he's doing because like he's pouring all of his energy into being the best version of himself on the field that he can be. So I still have really high hopes that this is going to turn out to be a really, really good trade.
So, Jake, it's great to hear your voice because I didn't hear
Thanks, buddy.
the first half of the program. Now I can't hear Zach. So this is really, I hope I don't repeat everything you said. Zach.
It's just that Brady Bunch box that's down there in that right corner, I
is.
guess. That's just, causing some problems today.
Yeah, my little iPhone doesn't like that box for some reason. But anyway, look, I have all faith in Sauce Gardner coming back and playing this year for the main reason that he's a guy that has a tremendous amount of pride. And he's a guy who, really does care about his craft, works on his craft. And, when he's out there, it gets the attention of the offense. And when you can have a guy like that can, shut down one receiver, it totally alters the offensive strategy that they're going against. The other thing you got to think about too now, and I don't know if the Colts are this ruthless, but when you get paid a lot of money like that and you don't hold up your end of the bargain, you can get cut so fast, and there's not much guaranteed money in the NFL. Well, I guess back in my day there wasn't guaranteed money, but it's better now. There's a little bit of security. I don't think Sauce is worried about getting cut. I just see him as a guy with a ton of pride who wants to make his mark. He is a premier corner in this league, and I expect him to come back and be better than ever. And once he is able to gain that communication with the people back there in the defensive backfield with him, the entire secondary is going to be better. And I'll just say I hope that Mooney can get the concussion thing right and have them both back there, because I think you put yourself in a position where you can really dominate on defense. If you can shut down, a top-notch receiver, like I said, it just totally alters the offensive attack. So I expect Sauce to come back and be an all-pro.
Yeah, and I think the bigger question this offseason really isn't much to do with Sauce Gardner, and I apologize, Alan, for not being able to hear this, but I think the bigger question isn't about what we're going to get out of Sauce Gardner, but more so, what does the secondary look like next season with the potential not having Mooney Ward, Nick Cross potentially leaving in free agency? What do Wohler and Wally look like coming off of pretty major injuries? Wally's coming off an ACL injury. Typically the recovery is a little bit better now than what it was back in when Allen played in like the 80s and 90s with ACL, but there's still some questions there. And to what Jake's been saying about Wohler, he's still in a boot right now, the Liz Frank injury. Like that's a pretty serious injury. So what does this defense look like? Like how do they add, which guys are coming back? Because if Ward's not back and Wally doesn't look as promising as he did last year and Cross isn't back, then we have even more questions in the secondary that I think if everything was healthy last year would have been pretty good. So that's probably the biggest question overall, is not really like what we're going to get out of Sauce Gardner or, what we're going to get out of Kenny Moore or Cameron Bynum. Like I think we kind of, for the most part, understand what we're getting out of those guys. It's more so the pieces around them. Like what does Wally look like? Do they get anything out of Ward? Jake and I are of the opinion that Ward is not coming back at this point. And then Cross, like if Cross is getting a market around $15 million per year, I don't think you can bring him back at that price point when you have so many other needs to address and you need to save some money to address those needs. So those are probably the bigger questions going into this offseason with the secondary, more so than will Sauce Gardner live up to his reputation, because whenever he's played, like even his worst with the Jets, he's still been a top 15, top 20 corner in football. He's still been very good. Maybe not the top 5 that he was when he first drafted, but he's been a very good player. So I'm not too concerned about Sauce. I'm more so concerned about what the rest of the secondary looks like and how they address it this offseason.
Again, it's the issue with the coordinator change, right? Where sometimes, you draft guys for a certain system and then you make a change and then they're no longer needed. I mean, we mentioned, I can't believe we're going to mention Juju Brents twice on the show, but, or Jalen Jones or, even Kenny Moore, maybe not as much of a fit anymore under a Lou Anarumo defense. And suddenly, what you were trying to build in 2023 is not what you're trying to build in 2026 anymore. And that's life in the NFL, right?
Right.
Just in general. And now you're having to adjust for all of that as well. But we'll move on from the defensive secondary next when we come back on the show and talk about those Indiana Hoosiers. Like I said, just make your wish list. Throw context out the window. The IU player that you would most like to see wearing Colts blue. There are many of them that are going to hear their name called coming up in the NFL draft in a few months. And we'll talk about that when the Colts Squad Show returns next. This portion of the Colts Squad Show brought to you by DripDrop. Let me make sure that I find it here. Bang, there it is. Kicking off the year, feeling good is the goal, right? And honestly, hydration is the easiest win. When I stay on top of it, my energy, focus, and mood all level up. But let's be real, plain water doesn't always cut it, especially when you're grinding through long days, hitting the gym, or just trying to stay consistent with your health goals. That's where DripDrop comes in. Doctor-developed, proven, fast hydration that helps your body and mind work better. Think clearer, focus, better energy, elevated mood, even that fresh skin glow. As you can tell by my giant forehead hair, you can see the glow. I've been using DripDrop as part of my daily routine, and it's honestly a game changer. You want to make sure that you're hydrated. The precise ratio of electrolytes and glucose ensures rapid absorption for you, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar. That's another key thing, guys, of the leading sports drinks. They have flexible subscription options as well, so you're never stuck without it, whether you're hitting the gym, juggling work, or just staying consistent with your goals. Right now, DripDrop is offering podcast listeners 20% off your first order. Go to DripDrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL. That's DripDrop.com, DRIPDROP.com, promo code LOCKEDONNFL for 20% off. Stock up now at DripDrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL. And we're back on the Locked On Colts Squad Show. Thanks so much for joining us on this Tuesday. As you may have seen, I understand that not all Colts fans live in Indiana. Some of you guys are Purdue graduates, or you're like Alan or Jake, you're Notre Dame fans. So while you probably feel rather indifferent towards Indiana, maybe this is a little bit weird for you. It's weird for everybody. It's weird even for Indiana fans to think that the national champions of college football. But, as much as we kind of want to make this into like a plucky Cinderella type story, where given Indiana's history it is, you look at their NFL caliber talent, and that list is actually quite substantial. And it's not just Mendoza and, a bunch of the so-called misfits. There are a couple of guys, Elijah Surratt, who's potentially a day 2 NFL draft pick, and a lot of other guys that are going to be later NFL draft picks as well. Mikhail Kamara, Aiden Fisher, players like D'Angelo Pons, who had the big pick 6 as well, players of that ilk. So I thought it'd be fun. And I know, Zach and Jake, you guys kind of talked about it on your daily show earlier today. If you guys haven't done that one yet, it should be your first listen every day. Then you can listen to this show right after that. I thought it'd be fun to just kind of go around the room and, anybody that you followed this season, even if it's just the last 3 weeks, because I understand not everybody was watching Indiana play. What was it, Old Dominion?
I was watching. That's a Virginia school right there, baby. I was watching ODU kind of.
ODU was scrappy this year. Yeah. ODU wasn't so bad this year. But I thought we'd go around and pick maybe our favorite Hoosier that you would most like to see wear Colts blue. I mean, if you throw context out, Mendoza being a quarterback and the uncertainty with Daniel Jones coming off the Achilles, maybe that's the go-to answer. But I think there are some other intriguing prospects that they have as well. Zach, I know you're the draft guy, so you tell me, is there anybody that maybe not a draft crush, but at least somebody you thought, hey, you know what? Like, I think that he's going to be a good player on this next level.
Yeah. I mean, there's 2 guys in this upcoming, well, one guy is going to be in this upcoming draft. The other one hasn't declared yet, as far as I know, but we actually, Jake and I introduced on the regular show, like more of this like prospect highlight thing that we're doing at the end of the show. And my first player, because it was Monday and I wanted to keep it topical, was Omar Cooper Jr. at wide receiver. I am such a big fan of his game. I think maybe Becker's will translate better, which we'll talk about Becker, I'm sure, in this segment, because he's awesome and he's so young still. But Cooper, I think his NFL game translates better than Surratt's, even in terms of like what you're getting from him. Like I said on the show when I did the segment, he's like a 6 out of 10 across the board, except when it comes to hands and creating after the catch. Those two attributes are so good for him right now in terms of anything in his vicinity he's catching. We saw the Penn State catch. Obviously, we saw multiple other catches this past season, catching traffic. Fantastic football player, but the ability to create after the catch as well with Omar Cooper Jr. is just next level. He reminds me so much of Parker Washington with the Jaguars, who was just phenomenal this past season. But as much as I love Omar Cooper Jr., D'Angelo Pons is the dude. Like, I don't care how tiny he is. He could be 5'1". I don't care. He is a playmaker. He is feisty. And he's just a ball player, man. At the end of the day, like, I think it's insane if the NFL has him drop out of the first round. And I know he's 5'8". I know he's 170 pounds, but the ball skills, you just can't teach that. Again, I don't mean to be horrible on my boy Jonathan Edwards here, but like, you see what happens when you have big athletic corners who don't have the ball skills. They can be in the right position, but at the end of the day, in the NFL, it's about guys who can make plays on the football, from taking the football away, getting pass breakups. And D'Angelo Pons just moves at this level of confidence and moxie at corner that you just don't find in most guys. It reminds me of kind of like just the confidence that like D'Angelo Hall played at back in the day, where it's like every movement feels like he knows where he's going on every single play, and every 50-50 ball, he's right there despite being like out leveraged and outsized by other players. He also threw a huge shoulder on a tight end in that game as well. D'Angelo, like, he is such a good football player, and I think whatever team drafts him, you're going to have 31 teams that regret it come draft day, because that's just a guy you want on your team. And honestly, like, the data is pretty good on like this is an outlier, right? Taking these 5'8", like 170-pound corners, but when you take them, you get guys like Captain Munnerlyn, you get the dude in Jones over in New England, who's a good playmaker there as well. So you get pretty good return on investment when you take the chances, because when they have these special outlier players, you know, he's not doing this at like FCS, you know, like at wherever in FCS school. He's doing this at the number one team in the country, and he was doing this in the national championship game against Miami. You know, D'Angelo Pons is a stud. I want that guy on my NFL team. And like I said, I think if, you know, whatever team he ends up on next season, I think there's going to be 31 teams around the league that regret it.
Pons was going to be my answer as well. And I know the Colts just invested in an undersized corner in Justin Wally, but I don't care. I just don't care. Like, I also have something for like undersized corners who play way above their size caliber. There was that kid for Ohio State a few years back who got drafted by the Raiders, but then went on to a life of crime instead. And I feel like D'Angelo Pons would be my redemption act. Like, I think Pons would really, really hit in the NFL. But yeah, the ball skills, the toughness, not knowing that he's 5'8", 170 pounds. He's also, I think, estimated around in the 4.3s. But yeah, the guy is a natural playmaker. The ball finds its way to him no matter what. So as far as Pons goes, that's definitely my guy. I also am intrigued by Coogan. I like a good, nasty interior offensive lineman. I think he would fit the DNA of the Colts offensive line very, very well. He is a guy that seems like kind of like the heart of that team. Like, they very much love that guy in that locker room. You can tell instantly. And then as far as receiver goes, I know I'm naming too many names at this point, but with the uncertainty at receiver, I like Surratt. I think he could replace a bit of what Michael Pittman Jr. gives you. The interior toughness. I think Surratt's probably a better route runner, and he's not an elite separator in terms of like his athleticism, but his route running is what gets him open in that area. So yeah, I would be smitten with any of those three for sure. And yeah, like Mendoza, let's go ahead. Yeah, like Mendoza, that would be okay with me too.
Yeah, Alan, in case you didn't hear, Jake named every single Indiana Hoosier player.
I could keep going.
So,
yeah.
But he talked about Coogan, and he talked about Pons as well. I mean, I think we all kind of like the undersized, gritty dude, like that just knows where to be. Like when the play is happening, D'Angelo Pons is involved in some capacity, and I do think that there's something to that can't necessarily be measured at the NFL Combine.
Well, are we just limited to the players? Can we pick a coach?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
I like that.
any of the coach, Signetti or the defense coordinator as well. The
Yeah.
defensive
Yeah.
coordinator,
Ryan Haynes
awesome.
is fantastic as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll let Alan
Yeah.
talk in a second, but like whoever coaches the linebackers, the way those linebackers move in coverage in terms of like getting to certain drops, feeling routes behind them, I want that guy. Like whoever is coaching up these linebackers to feel routes behind them. I was watching the Skycast and I was like, these guys have a better view than I do somehow of where routes are behind them. It's fantastic what they're doing there.
And they play with 3 linebackers all the time. It's crazy. No one does that.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say this, that all the players on the Indiana team, to me, displayed a high football IQ. I think they all are coached well and are coachable. And I wouldn't say they played over their heads. They did their job, and they did their job to damn near perfection. And I sure would love to know what the secret sauce is that Signetti has to get them to play that way. But I also realize that you probably got some players on the Colts that are younger than some of the guys on IU's team. So that maturity level makes a big difference too. But the guy that stood out to me, will make it a clean sweep. Pons, just a knack for getting to the football. And, that's the size I was my freshman year in college. Of course, I thought he was listed at 5'9", but I was listed at 5'9", and I've never been 5'9". But I like to see the little guy do some stuff, but just he's a playmaker. And one of the things, the defensive backs are at such a disadvantage because you got all these 6'4" wide receivers, but a good DB is going to not care about the height of the receiver. He's going to care about where the ball is, and they get away with it because they can play the ball. And just other little plays that Pons made where he was supposed to be blocked, but somehow he got ahead of the blocker and then behind the line of scrimmage to be able to make a tackle. Dude is just a playmaker. Yeah, and so I think he would fit into anybody's scheme well. They're going to have a lot of players get drafted because what that team showed is they know how to rise up with coaching. And there was a lot made about the fact that they had no 5-star players on that squad. And I was watching, game day, and Nick Saban immediately chimed in and said, well, they might not have been 5-star players when they came out of high school, but they damn sure are 5-star players now. Those guys have been developed. And, just a quick comment on the game. I think that Ole Miss showed a little bit of how you can beat Miami by going up tempo and making those defensive ends from Miami tired. But I never expected Indiana to try to go up tempo. I expected Indiana to just be who they are, play the way they play, and Indiana dictate to the other team how you're going to stop them. And that's exactly what they did. And to that, I would say all the players that are eligible on that squad eligible to play in the NFL will have a roster spot somewhere next year.
Yeah, and one more player that we have to mention, because I only alluded to him, but I wanted to make sure we got the shout out. He's not eligible for this draft because he's only a true sophomore, I believe. But Charlie Becker is awesome. Just an incredible wide receiver. And he was getting the Alec Pierce comps across the board from everybody yesterday. Big white receiver that doesn't miss any catches. Obviously, I get it. But you kind of feel it when you're watching the game. I mean, it's not like Indiana was doing anything complex on offense late in that game. It was, when we need a conversion, where are we going? Either a flat to Omar Cooper Jr. or a back shoulder down the field to Charlie Becker. And they couldn't stop it. Like, that's when you know you're just a very good player. You can't stop it. Charlie Becker is awesome. And to think that he only got out there because Surratt was injured for a couple games and then he became a pivotal piece of that offense just shows how deep they are at Indiana and how well coached they are, because Becker showed up halfway through the year and became their best overall receiver and one of their best offensive players.
I just have one last honorable mention to throw in, and not just because he shares a last name with this player, but I actually saw an NFL draft comp that directly compared the two. Their best offensive lineman, not from a leadership standpoint, that was Pat Coogan, I think unquestionably was the heart of that offensive line, but Carter Smith, their tackle, is projected as potentially a day 2 or day 3 pick, and he's a guy that just a big, tough dude that looks like Braden Smith. I mean, like out of casting, like that sort of player, and maybe could potentially be a 8, 9, 10-year type solid, rock solid NFL type player as well on that next level.
As long as he's never playing against Ruben Bain ever again. Just avoid that matchup.
Last night was not going to make the highlight reel. Both of Indiana's tackles, I thought, to be fair, that was kind of the one position battle that I think you looked at and you thought, okay, Miami's got the distinct advantage here, and they played that to their advantage. But and then the false start as well. I mean, it was not it was not a wonderful night for Carter Smith, but he's had a great career at IU and is a worthy NFL prospect.
At least when Messidor was beating him, like Messidor is older than Nick Cross. Like, that's an old player that's beating you. It's fine. Ruben Bain's just a superstar, so it's hard to you can only just hope to get in front of him. So as he gets older, he'll learn how to adjust a little bit better with that. But I do like Smith as well.
We'll get to our news and notes segment to wrap the show next, which includes a new coach for the Titans and a new venue for Colts training camp coming soon. We'll discuss when the Squad Show returns. This portion of the Colts Squad Show brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is officially in playoff mode every game day during the NFL playoffs. FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action, because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them right inside the app. So that means each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to the bets you like most. So this is, guys, the stuff that you're already playing, right? With a boost. You get it from FanDuel. On Championship Sunday, all you have to do is open up your Profit Boost pack first thing on game day and see what boost you want to apply to the bets you already like. It's fast, it's easy, and you're going to get bigger payouts. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel that way as well, too, with FanDuel. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your Profit Boost pack every NFL playoff game day. Back for a final time here on the Locked On Colts Squad Show. Alan Pinkett, former NFLer, Zach Hicks, Locked On Colts, Jake Arthur, Locked On Colts, Ben, making his second, I think, maybe second or third appearance. We're always happy to have Ben on the Squad Show as well. We're fully squatted up tonight, and we really appreciate you joining us, especially for some of this off-season content as we go through our position reviews, some of the look backs, some of the look forwards. We'll kind of, be on both sides of the fence for the next couple of weeks here as we bid adieu to the 2025 season, while also, of course, turning our attention to what's going to be a critical offseason for the Colts. But what we're going to do on Tuesday's show, so we'll just do this every week because, just kind of a compilation of some of the news that has happened since we last spoke. And I fully understand that Jake and Zach have talked about some of these items on their daily show already, but just to get the squad together to talk about some of these topics. And always interesting when an AFC South team hires a new head coach, and that's what is happening with Tennessee landing on Robert Saleh. And I know, Zach, the Jets' time did not go well for him. As with most things, when it's the Jets, you take it with a little bit with a grain of salt because that franchise has been such a grease fire for so long. He has had a lot of success in the 2-time stint that bookended his sandwiched his Jets time with the 49ers as the defensive coordinator. And as we've seen in this business, sometimes kind of like with quarterbacks, sometimes second stints for head coaches do work out. So I am intrigued to see how it plays out for Tennessee. I think we'd all agree in an offseason of splash hires, this is not a splash whatsoever, but maybe a guy that, deserved a second chance, and he's going to get into Nashville.
Yeah, I don't hate it for them. I would have, if I were in their shoes, I probably would have gone more offensive coach to pair with Cam Ward. Just to, again, you want that synergy between an offensive type of head coach with the young quarterback. And Salah's not had the greatest track record with the offensive coordinator hires when he was with the Jets, and he was part of the decision making that got Zach Wilson there and ran Sam Darnold out of town. So, a lot went wrong in that Jets tenure for him. But one thing we do know about him is he knows how to coach up a defense. He can get the most out of guys. He can really squeeze that lemon until it's completely done. Does a great job of just maximizing the players he has on defense, much like we saw this past year with the 49ers, where they had nobody healthy on that defense, and they were still managed to get as far as they did with that in mind. So, yeah, I think he's a good coach. I'm just curious to see what the plan is for offensive coordinator, because a lot of people are speculating, does his old buddy Mike McDaniel follow him there and become the offensive coordinator? And then that makes that hire, not sexy to this like super splash hire where you're getting these two awesome coaches. Mike McDaniel has been announced while we're recording here to go to the Chargers as their offensive coordinator. So McDaniel is not going to be going to the Titans. So I'm really curious to see what direction they go with offensive coordinator, because that will kind of make or break the hire, I think, for a lot of Titans fans. One name that they keep, I know this is not really part of the Colts, but I wonder if Leonard Hankerson gets a shot there. He's been working under Shanahan for a couple of years now and played under Shanahan back with Washington in his playing career. I wonder if this is the time that Hankerson finally gets his shot as an offensive coordinator, but we'll see. He said Saleh has apparently got this big plan for offensive coordinator, but that'll make or break the hire for the Titans. But it could have been worse, obviously, for them. Like Matt Nagy was apparently a finalist for them, so it certainly could have been worse for them. So getting Saleh and potentially, like, at least your defense is going to be pretty good, and your guys are going to play hard. It feels like they're trying to get back to the Mike Vrabel era, essentially. Like they fired Vrabel, went to a young offensive coach and Brian Callahan. It didn't work, and they're like, okay, let's go back to a guy who can coach up defense and be a rah-rah guy, and hope that can work because it's working with Vrabel in New England. So we'll see what it amounts to for them, but obviously it could have been much worse for the Titans, and we'll see if this gets them out of their little bit of purgatory they've been in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I don't hate the Robert Saleh move. I like him as a coach. I think he gets results like from the coordinator perspective. And Tennessee, I think they need that authoritative message from the head coach again. I know, on our network, Tyler Rowland, he likes the fact that this is a guy who, in his words, he's not a Boy Scout. There's not a Boy Scout at head coach anymore. And I'll be honest, I liked the Brian Callahan move for Tennessee when it happened. I thought they were getting a bright young coach, which maybe he, can have success. He just landed somewhere else, and this just wasn't the right time or place for him. But Saleh, I think, will probably give Tennessee what they need. There's still some veterans there who probably are craving that sort of leadership that Saleh provides. But just like Zach said, my big but with this is who's your OC? Because as far as we know, Saleh has no track record of being able to have young offensive players developed under him in his system with whoever he's going to be having coach there. So yeah, it could be a relative like up and comer or unknown like Leonard Hankerson, who I think is from Miami, Zach. So there's that nice little connection there with Cam Ward. He played at Miami. So
yeah, he did play at Miami. Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know if they go the veteran route with someone who does have a track record of working well with quarterbacks, or just get that young energy like a Hankerson to pair with Ward. But yeah, I don't hate the move. I think it'll work out better than it did with Callahan.
Well, I'm scratching my head a little bit, and maybe it's my fault because I'm thinking of Saleh with the Jets. But I guess going to the Jets is where coaches go to die. But Saleh did have an impressive go at it with San Francisco, and to me, the hiring of Saleh, I think the Titans are trying to relive the days they had under Mike Vrabel. Yep. That strong defensive presence, and they had some good success with Vrabel, but when it tailed off. So to me, it sounds like they're trying to rediscover that type of authority in the room for that team. But, we've got a good model out there that shows like with the Bears, when you hire a coach that is in charge of the offense and has a young upstart quarterback, and you can groom that quarterback, I don't care what kind of defense you have. If you got a quarterback that can make plays and you are centered around the development of that quarterback, that's going to solve a lot of problems. I know when the short stint I had in Green Bay, their key to success, and I had Mike Holmgren at that time. The key to success was everybody down to the damn janitor. It was going to support Brett Favre and do everything in their power to make sure that he was comfortable. And I don't mean like, treat him like a king or anything like that. But the entire organization just got behind Brett Favre as a quarterback because they knew that he could take them to the promised land. Well, I think Cam Ward has a special kind of talent that could take that team far, but who is going to be left to develop him? Salah's not developing a quarterback, so I guess what remains to be seen is, you got a head coach for the defense. You need a head coach for the offense if you want to turn that thing around. And I guess I should have a vested interest in what the Titans do since they used to be the Oilers.
Yeah, and we'll have to see that you have to chalk them up for 0-2 against the Colts. So it's about maximizing the other 15 games that are on. It's like the one thing that we can still dunk on, Allen, in this town is that the Colts are still better than that's the one thing that we have left in Indy. So hopefully you'll let us have that. Sorry about that. Final thing in news and notes, and look, I'm bummed about it. I get it, but I think many of you probably saw the news about the Colts are going to move their training camp to their facility, which most NFL teams do. I think it's up to like 25 or 26 teams do it. So we're talking about a very small handful, including the Colts that are still holdouts. So we'll have one last season offside in Westfield, but this is a team that forever, I remember way back in the Terre Haute days, back at the peak of Peyton Manning and then into Anderson. And then the last, however, it's been 6, 7, 8 years in Westfield as well. I do hope that Jake, and I know that you're there every day, and I think they will do this. I think the Colts will be proactive about creating other access opportunities for fans. Because really, to me, that's what camp has always been about. It's the lone chance that a lot of people have to get up close and personal with their favorite team.
Yeah, I mean, you've been at the facility. I mean, luckily they have over a year now to kind of prepare for whatever fan experience they want to have. But right now, it wouldn't be super welcoming for fans. I don't really know where they would go. But with that said, there's a little bit of land around the facility on the outside. They could do something. What they've done in the past, between mini camps and I think some training camp ones, they went to Lucas Oil a time or two. They
mini camp.
They did like an open practice for fans there. They went to Warren Central one night. I remember that, because Andrew Luck was still hiding during his shoulder injury and everyone came to see him. So there's things they can do. I do think it's good that they're doing one more year at Grand Park to figure this whole thing out, because fans are already angry right now. And now you're taking away one of the very cheap options they have to interact with the team. They've got to figure out a way to keep fans involved in this. Because as soon as I tweeted about it, it was boom, 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 negative comment after negative comment. You're not doing enough on the field to make your fans happy, and this was a very unpopular thing to do. I totally understand. Logistically, it makes all the sense in the world not to go 45 minutes up to Westfield. For me, I live 15 minutes away from the facility, so I'm pumped. But at the same time, if I was a fan depending on going to see this team every day, that would not make me happy whatsoever. So I do think with the fact that they continue to not make fans happy on the field, they have to keep fans in the forefront of things. I do understand this is a business decision, but they owe a lot to the fans right now. And so figuring out a way to keep them involved in training camp, at the facility even is going to have to be one of them.
Yeah, and
Well,
I don't really. Oh, were you gonna say something now? You want to go?
yeah, I don't understand the economics of it, but maybe they save a couple bucks by going to the facility. And I hope I don't sound like the old man saying, get off my lawn when I say this, but I've always believed training camp should be in a separate location. And it should be one of those things where fans have a chance to see all this talent. And I think training camp should be one of those situations where it's the harshest conditions you have to deal with, because you have to earn your right to sit in that facility. I just believe that the facility is reserved for the 53 dudes that are going to be on that roster. And, because in that facility, there's lots of amenities and, things that are like perks that you don't have at training camp. But that's on purpose. Training camp is supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be one of those things where you got to fight for the right to get to that facility. So I'm not a big fan of them moving it, but like I say, get off my lawn.
My only thought with this is because, again, this whole topic was more of a Jake topic with how often he's there, and I've only been out there a couple of times. But I'm going to miss dear friend of the show, the Rooster, that interrupted that one episode where Jake really couldn't get a word in, and we made it a whole bit that entire offseason, the Rooster interrupting Jake trying to talk on the show. But I'm going to miss him, man. He was a really great guest, one of our highest profile guests we've had on the show, Jake. And, we got to make sure you interview him at least one more time this next season.
I didn't even see him this summer. I heard him a couple times, but I did not see him.
All right, you got to make sure to find him for our last summer here, and we got to get an exclusive interview, and then we'll be on our merry way.
Yeah, the Locked On folks, actually, they had Alan already committed for the show, and they were looking for a host. And full disclosure, they asked the Rooster, and then he declined, and then they went to me, and that's how I ended up.
That's what it was.
Part of the squad show here. I was the runner-up to the Rooster.
I will say, if I can say something like in defense of the Colts' decision here, I don't know how accommodating and like how challenging it's been for the Colts necessarily. I do just understand, like, on the surface, like going somewhere 45 minutes up the road just is inherently more difficult.
It's a logistical nightmare, right?
But like for the media, for instance, the whole thing, they might just be outgrowing Grant Park already, because like for the media, we had a setup where the Indy 11 are actually headquartered at Grant Park, and the 11 just they didn't have room for the media to share. Like, media would share the building with the 11 and their headquarters, and they didn't have it anymore, and we had to like go to a hotel down the street, which is totally fine. Like, I don't care. I'm just saying stuff like that. I wouldn't be surprised if that is adding up and they're just kind of outgrowing Grand Park at this point.
And again, this is SOP for most of the NFL franchises. Yeah. So in defense of the Colts, they held out, I think, about as long as they could before they make that decision for 2027. We're going to continue our Tuesday, Thursday cadence for the squad show with there being no Colts football anymore. So we'll be back with you on Thursday nights at 9 p.m. And as always, keep it locked on Jake and Zach for the rest of the week. Locked On Colts, your first listen every day. And be sure to follow at Locked On Colts on socials and check out our other great content on YouTube and TikTok. And we'll see you next time right here on the squad.